Okay, friends, we just got back into our RV, which we will be using up here in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan to hang out for the next couple of weeks, and then again in August and again in September. And I'm going to take you on a little tour of this RV. It is not cute, it is not updated. We probably are going to make some improvements to it as we go, but it was really cheap. We bought it just to serve a purpose, and that purpose was to give us a place to crash when we are helping to run our business, which is 7 hours from the place where we live most of the time. This was like a really utilitarian purchase. You can see the decor that the previous owners put in. It's 2003 Monterey, and we are parked on a little piece of property on the river that we bought without really having any idea what we were going to do with it. So it's pretty hot today. It's like Upper Peninsula hot, which is not usually quite as hot as it is downstate and in more southern regions, but it's very muggy. And it's a little musty in here. It was closed up all winter. You can see there's just mess everywhere. The first day is always so chaotic getting in here because we just bring everything in from the car and then basically go through it. And Eric's off running an errand right now, which I like to be able to have some space in here just on my own because it's not very big. There's just a little sleeping area in the back, this little kitchenette, a table, which is currently completely covered, and then this area up front, which would be if we were driving it, is where you'd sit to drive it. But we don't drive it. We just park it. It's essentially just, I don't know, a permanent tent that we sleep in when we're here. So I'm going to go ahead and clean up and start putting stuff away. And then later, when you can actually see some surfaces, I'll take you for a little tour. I have been working in here and I'm a little bit sweaty. The air conditioning is not on in here. This is far northern Michigan. If you're not familiar with where this is, here's the mitten you're always hearing about. And the Upper Peninsula is a totally different land mass that's above the mitten. And we're about here. So we're still on Lake Michigan, just like we are at our place in Southwest Michigan. We are just at the upper side of Lake Michigan rather than the lower side. I feel like I'm a little crooked here. Whatever. It could just be that the RV is parked crooked. That actually makes a lot more sense. One of the nice things about being up here is that it doesn't really get that hot. Right now, I think at home, there's a heat wave of 92, 93 degrees, something like that. Here, it's in the mid 70s. It is a little muggy. So inside here, I've been working, cleaning, packing, getting stuff situated, but it's really pretty tolerable, especially because our property is very wooded. It just doesn't really get too uncomfortable. And so right now I am sitting at the little dinette and this is my view out the window. Sometimes I sit here and work, but I'm even more likely to sit and work in our little bed nook. So I will take you there next. This is where I spend most of my time when I'm working. I have this little lap desk that I use, and we installed this little shelf where I can have my tea or my book or my chapstick or whatever I might need. And so it's really worked. It's been very functional. And because there's not a whole bunch of other things to do here inside the RV, I find that I actually have a lot less distraction. I write a lot more. I read a lot more. I finish more books while I'm up here. And I just have time to kind of hang out, which is nice. It's a nice change from what life is like at home. While I try to keep our lives pretty simple, there's just more things to kind of get lost in and more things to distract me. So that has been really nice too. So I wanted to talk a little bit about why we're doing this. And like all the whys. So A, why are we staying in an RV? Are we planning to become RV people permanently? Why did we buy a really old RV instead of getting something more updated or with more features? And why are we here in this particular area? So I'll start with the first one, why the RV? I actually don't think we're probably going to become full-time RVers. We did think about it. One of our very first date nights was watching some kind of a van life documentary, or maybe it was like somebody who lived in a bus. Eric and I, my husband, we got married in 2023. We started dating in 2020. And so, of course, it was like peak pandemic times when we met. And we're both dreamers. And so I feel like we have played out in our own imaginations and our conversations with each other, like every possible scenario, from living on a boat to living in a van to full-time RVing. At this point, I don't see us doing that. I'm not sure we actually want to be nomads. I think we both really like having kind of cozy home lives. And Eric's work is very physical. He is a professional painter. He's getting his contractor's license. He does basically all of the physical work of maintaining wherever it is we live, the outdoor work. He's just really good at that stuff. And while I can definitely work digitally, us being on the road feels more like it would be a vacation. And right now, I just don't think we're in a place where we're wanting to take a year-long vacation. Maybe a few months. I think it would actually be really fun. But we've also talked about the trade-offs. If you RV, yes, you're carting your house and your belongings around with you, and theoretically, it's easier to get set up in places when you get there. But we're not traveling with children. It's not that hard for us to just stay in hotels. So if we went on a road trip or something like that, I could see us taking just our car and having it be maybe some kind of hybrid experience where we car camp some of the time and stay in hotels the rest of the time, or whatever that looks like. At this point, I don't think full-time RVing is going to be our thing. But it really made a lot of sense for the place that we are right now. We had just bought this piece of property. It needs a lot of work. Right now, there's no utilities on it, there's no septic. We are located right on the banks of this beautiful, peaceful river, but there's not really an easy way to access the river right now. We need to do some clearing. It'd be nice to have a dock down there or some kind of a platform to sit on. So there's just a lot to be done. And ultimately, our goal is to build a cabin up here that we can live in year round, or at least stay in year round. Whether or not we end up living up here full time is another question. But we also don't want to go into a ton of debt to do that. So we want to take it piece by piece and do it in a way that's economical and makes sense. Basically, we don't want to limit our options and our freedom by having to essentially finance a second home. That is not part of my plan for my 50s. Eric's kids are both grown and flown, they're both married. My kids are mostly out of the house. And I feel like after having a long period of time where I was just working really hard and I was basically just trying to out earn my family's needs, I really thought that there was security in earning. And that was really my focus in my 20s and 30s and even going into my 40s. And now that we're in a place where we can kind of pump the brakes on that a little bit, I'm finding that I don't want to hustle so hard just so that we can have another house to live in right now. So we bought this RV cash. It was less than $5,000. Eric did do a lot of research and a lot of scouting, and it has had some problems. We've had some issues with the mechanicals, things not working quite right. Some things he's been able to fix, some things he hasn't been able to fix quite as well. But it has really worked for us, and it's met the goal, which is just for us to have a place to lay our heads that's comfy and cozy and that makes it possible for us to ride it out till the next stage, which might be next year. We kind of have a plan for how we will get that project started. But neither one of us wanted to be under a ton of pressure to aggressively earn in order to be able to afford to live up here. When we're here, we are running our store, we are kayaking, we are hiking, we are enjoying our friends up here, we're enjoying the nature up here, and we didn't want it to start feeling like a grind. So having this inexpensive place to rest our heads, essentially, I think was the right move for us. And I'm really enjoying it. I really like living in this little place. It's really cozy. Sometimes it feels a little small, like when we're both in here trying to get things done at the same time, or when I'm unpacking or whatever. The first day is always really chaotic. But pretty soon we will ease in and we will be all settled. We'll have our routines down and things will start to feel really functional and simple. There's a lot I do here that's different from what I do at home. Our meals are very simple. We tend to eat the same things over and over. Honestly, at home, we also tend to eat the same things over and over. But here we have a smaller fridge, a really tiny oven, a tiny little sink. And so everything just has to be done with a little more care and thought. One thing that I think is so interesting about the age I am, so I'll be 49 later this month. And I mentioned earlier that I feel like my 20s and especially my 30s were really about this push to acquire and to earn and to provide and to move up in the world. And I think I have an idea somewhere in the back of my head that if I did that, then I would just ride into my 50s very set up, that there wouldn't really be any reason to have to make financial sacrifices, that everything I would ever want would be very easily accessible to me. And I think what I've learned instead is that theoretically, yes, that would have been possible. There were certain choices I could have made in my 30s that would have maybe put us on a trajectory to have more money. But in my early 40s, I started to realize that I was not willing to make the trade offs in freedom, in feeling like the work I did was meaningful in other choices that I was making. I just really wanted my freedom. I really wanted to feel like the work I was doing was work I wanted to be doing that was satisfying and creative and not like I was just a cog in a machine. I would not have been able to handle that. So the choices that I made then set us up instead for a life where we're just normal people. We're comfortable enough. We're not struggling, but it's not as easy as just buying a brand new RV or putting up a cabin or something like that. There are sacrifices that we're still making. And duh, right? It's pretty obvious to me now, looking back, that the trajectory I was on was not one that was going to position me to have no financial worries. And I made a lot of choices that got us there. My husband and I, both independently of each other, because we didn't know each other then, made choices that favored that freedom, that independence, that flexibility, and basically just set us up to have somewhat simpler lives. And I am really grateful for that. I would not want to be going into my 50s feeling a lot of pressure to keep a job I hate just to pay the bills, just to pay a mortgage, just to fund some vacation expectations that we had set, maybe financial support expectations for our adult kids that they had developed because we would have led them into those expectations. We're not there. We're in a place where we have options. Not every option. It's not like the sky's the limit and we can do whatever we want, but there's not a lot of pressure to climb the ladder to be able to afford a lifestyle that we've created for ourselves. And I got to say, that feels pretty good. So here I am talking to you from our very old, very inexpensive RV, sitting on a pretty inexpensive piece of property that we bought in a place that is still pretty inexpensive to buy land. And that means there's just amenities here that we won't have. There is no Starbucks. There is no Target. There are a lot of things that this area of the world, that this area of our state does not have. But what it has offered for me is this feeling of peace and a feeling of freedom and a feeling of having options. And this little RV has been a big part of that story. So I'm excited to see where we go with it, what happens with the property. I feel like right now we are very open to wherever things take us. And I'm excited to take you along for the ride too.